Our hospital has adopted the Institute of Medicine's quality aims, so making sure that our care is safe, timely, effective, efficient, equitable, and patient-centered. And so as part of that, on an annual basis, we select a hospital-wide process improvement activity, and we base that on input from our physicians, from staff. And so in 2009, our hospitals had brought forth about the not having a sepsis protocol and a concern about that.
We used the Plan, Do, Study, Act methodology. We already had the data so that we knew our mortality rate was 50%, something that we could improve upon. We gathered a team that was specific for people who could bring changes to this PI project that we were starting. We used pharmacy. We needed their help with medications and order sets. We used information systems. We needed a computer person to develop the screen in our electronic medical record and make changes as necessary, because it is a fluid process. We always found that there are little things we needed to change, and as new improvements came along, we needed them to make those changes in our EMR screen as well. We involved education because there was a huge education piece for nursing and physicians as well. We also had the nursing unit leaders, because this was going to be rolled out to their areas. They needed to be familiar with it, see how it would work in their workflow.
And so we also knew to be successful we had to have a physician champion, a senior leadership champion, and then a leader of the team who's very invested in the process.
My part was mainly in regards of developing the sepsis protocol. Dr. Smith was working on a sepsis protocol for the emergency room. I was working on a sepsis protocol for the ICU. We also had a cooperation with the Bryan LGH in Lincoln, and because they had a similar project that they did several years back.
There's 3 sections, Section A, B, and C. Section A starts it off where we ask 4 questions pertinent to identifying sepsis. The first one that we start with is suspected or documented infection. So we have blood cultures been drawn or other pending. And what the nurse does is she answers yes or no. At the end of her screen, if she answered, the bottom question will say, did you answer more than 1 questions yes, then that's a positive for Section A. So then it drafts you down to Section B, and 5 more questions are asked that time, and that pertains to the vitals, which are triggers for sepsis too. So if the temperature is going high, 101, then that would be a yes to that question. Heart rate, we have separate parameters for that too. 90, say they were hitting 97, that means their heart rate's elevated, so yes to that. So again, we'd finish that screen in Section B, and if you answered more than 2 questions with yes, then it prompts us to call the doctor.
We used the Society of Infectious Diseases guidelines for the protocol, and we worked with the pharmacy in details about the medications that we're going to use, about antibiotic. We also involved the infectious diseases physician that works in the hospital to review the antibiotics, and we came in with coverage for different sepsis sources, first choice, second choice of antibiotics. So it took some time to actually look through all these things, work through them, and adjust them, but overall no big obstacles.
But we as nurses, we go to Section C and fill out the next part. On our WOWs, what we have is deterioration of a patient's condition. So we try to hit all areas. We can call what we call a rapid response. Is that brings extra eyes to the bedside. At bedside we have the primary nurse. It brings also respiratory therapy, the ICU nurse, your charge nurse, house supervisor is present. At that time, then we've got our extra eyes to identify the septic triggers, and we can then transfer to ICU. So for the rest of our training, we did the PowerPoint, we discussed a case scenario. We also gave our nurses what we call pocket cards that they can keep with them with the triggers right on it. What happens when you get to Section C? What do you do? So that people were kind of aware of what they needed to do when they got there. We also put posters up on every unit so that everyone that came in kind of had a basic idea of what we're screening for. We're looking for that patient that's in trouble that we need to catch now before they get very critical.
Our aim statement was to decrease our mortality by 25% within a year of implementation. And so we have from data from August of 2010 when we implemented through July of 2011, our mortality rate is 15.1. So we're very, very excited about the success of the project. We also looked at length of stay and we looked at charges. That wasn't our original focus, but we thought it's important to tie dollars to quality. We basically dropped our average length of stay for, we divide them into groups, so like you have your septicemia group, your severe sepsis, and your septic shock. And so for septicemia people diagnosed with septicemia and for septic shock, we dropped the length of stay by almost half, and the same thing with the charges. And so that was another positive outcome as a result of our project.
Nebraska's hospitals, your leaders in quality.